Hi everyone. In this video, we will discuss about performance optimization using ETag. So if I have an UI and if I reload the page, the UI loads as expected. Whenever I reload the UI, the server sends me the response which prints the UI, and this is expected. But if I reload the UI again and I know that the content has not changed, does the server really needs to send the entire content again back to the UI? No, right? So the purpose of ETag is to mention that we don't need to resend that entire content again to the front end. So whenever we are not sending the entire content, we are making the request lightweight and the response time becomes fast. The flow is, so whenever we are sending a request, it goes to the server and the server responds back with a ETag. In this case, it is 12345, status code 200 and the body. Now, next time, whenever that same request is being sent, the browser internally will pass the if not match value, which is along with the previous ETag header. Now, this gets whatever the API is being requested, the SHA of the API or the MD5 of that API is compared with this value. And if it is a change, it will send back the new code. If it is not a change, it will directly send 304 that is not modified. And in this case, we will see that there is no body that is sent back again. Let's see it in action. So when I reload the UI, we see that this response is received. And if we look at the header, there is an ETag with a specific number. So what happens whenever I have requested for this resource for the first time, the browser, as soon as the browser receives the response, the browser creates a cache with, let's say, ETag as the object name and the content as the value of that object. Now, next time, when I reload, we see that it is giving 3 0 and 3 0 indicates that there is no need to retransmit the requested resource. So in this case, the server actually haven't given back the resource. It has just sent me the response. Now, once it gives 304, the browser understands that means this resource can be fetched from cache. So how the browser does is, so we saw that in the previous case with for the first time reload, this was the identifier. This was the ETag. So that is 1F290. So next time, whenever we have requested, we see that there will be a if not match header, which is the same header that we have, which actually is getting passed by the browser itself. So what browser does is it sends if the request is same. In this case, this request is same. So browser will pass the previous ETag as this if not match value. So now this is getting compared in the server side, and if this is equal, it will send back without any content. Now, whenever the browser receives this as 304 not modified, so browser understand that means with this ETag, which is again previous, this is no change, it is still the same ETag. That means with this ETag, some content already exists in its cache and it directly picks up from the cache. So if we are having very large files, it becomes very faster because every time no every time the resource is not sent over the network if there is no change. Now, if I keep reloading, we see it is getting 304 because there is no change. Now, let's say at one point of time, there is a change. And if we reload the UI, we see that it automatically becomes 200, right? And because whenever we are reloading the UI, the request is receiving at the server end. Now, in this case, the last ETag was received as 1F290. But in this case, if we see the ETag is different. Why? Because whenever this request went, it went with the 1F290, which is the previous ETag value. This is the previous ETag value. So the request went with this ETag value. Sorry, this ETag value. But when but in the back end, when it will compare with the MD5 or the SHA of the new content of the file, right? In this case, the content has changed. So whenever we are sending the request comes here, right? So, and whenever the request is coming here, the first thing we do is we create a hash of the latest data that we have. Since the data have changed, so the hash will also change, right? In that case, what happens is the previous if not match value will not match to the ETag. So what happens if it is not a match? That means there is a change, and we send the new ETag along with the data. But in case if it was matching, we send 304 with only the ETag alone, and we don't send the data. So this method is helpful whenever we are mostly dealing with static data that doesn't change too often. And this speeds up the UI performance. And if we look at a live example, we have cdnjs.com. If we reload the UI, we see that their JavaScript, let's say if we open this 3A7B, we see that they are passing this ETag and this is B7E4977 something. If we reload this again, we will see that it still replies back with the same ETag. Right? So this ETag will change only when the content of the file has changed. So that way it speeds up the UI performance. Thank you.